Hey, guys, thank you for checking out the Lincoln County podcast today. Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe, and check out all of our sponsors. Without them, none of this would happen. So give them a shout, check out their products, and help them out. And so I'm going to turn it over to my guest today. He's going to introduce himself, and we're going to start talking. So how are you today?
I'm doing great, man. I really appreciate you having me. Thank you, and thanks for the invite.
Thank you.
My name is David Marx. Okay. I'm an automotive entrepreneur. I got 3 companies that I run. I got a traditional auto repair business, buy and sell business. I'm a Missouri licensed auto dealer.
Nice. And
then we finance through a lease to own program, and those are all separate entities.
How's that going with the lease to own? I saw you post some stuff on that. Like that's your newest thing.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It is. It's been a shit show to advertise that on Facebook Marketplace. There's me and one other guy doing this in the area.
I bet.
Right. You know what? That's what makes entrepreneurship cool.
Yeah.
Is let's try something. Let's put something out there that no one else is doing.
Yeah.
And if you want to grow, you got to get uncomfortable and you got to get outside your comfort zone. So that's given me a platform and an opportunity to do that because I got 3 on the road. Okay. Yeah. And now I got a better idea on what vehicles work with that program.
Yeah.
And the type of consumer that's going to appeal to.
Yes.
Right. And now so I'm a big numbers guy. If you don't know your numbers, you don't know your business.
Yep.
So now what I can do, I'm meeting with a banker tomorrow because now I got 3 of these on the road. Because I get to depreciate these. With the lease to own program, it's titled in the leasing company. Now I get to depreciate these. So I can go to the bank and go, okay, if my sales business buys it, it pays the repair shop X number of dollars to recondition it. Then I got that dollar amount. How much do I mark that up to the leasing company based on depreciation? Then I can go to my CPA.
Yep.
And we can have conversations because it's kind of hard how do you have conversations with these financial professionals without having this data? Now I got 3 of these on the road, and now I've learned kind of like how to do this because this took a lot longer to do than what I anticipated, but that would take the fun out of it. It was just easy.
Well, and that's the thing with entrepreneurship too, is the process of doing that stuff. Everybody thinks a lot of times entrepreneurs are greedy but I found with like the people that are really, really, really successful, they just love the process. They love the buying, the selling, whatever it is, they love the process. I didn't realize till recently, I love building a business. Like I enjoy when like a friend of mine will open a business and I'll go help them paint or something. Like I love that part of it. I think that's so fun. And like you just said, you got 3 on the road. Now you're learning these numbers. Now you can go to these people. And I would think with having the shop and having everything, you wholesale the car, your shop fixes it, then you lease to own it. Like it's a common sense thing for you to do if you learn how to do it.
Right. Well, I think too, where it's like me, and this is what I've been coached on by guys that got way more bigger business than I have. Stay in your lane, Dave. It's not like I'm in automotive. I've been in automotive since late 90s. It's not like I'm trying to do automotive and real estate at the same time or go paint a house.
Yeah.
No, I'm staying in my automotive lane. Okay, how can I build automotive entities that can all work together, all do business together? That makes sense.
Yes.
I'm not trying to go do stuff that in automotive that doesn't make sense.
No, and like I paint for a company that he's a realtor, but he's a home builder.
Mm-hmm.
And he also has apartments. So he builds his own apartments and sells them to the management company, which he owns.
Yep.
He owns all of it. I don't know how all that works out on paper, but it's working very well for him. And I think it's super interesting when you can do that, when you can be part of the whole process, because you're saving, you're making money on each little avenue of it, and your big payout at the end too. So it just makes sense.
It just makes sense. So how I'm set up is I set up a holding company, right? Then underneath that, there's the 3 entities, repair, sales, and leasing, all taxed as S-corps. And what we did this year is my bookkeeper, I'm getting a new CPA, is we do a consolidated statement. So, in QuickBooks, I have 1 account, right? So I have 3 P&Ls by classes. QuickBooks, you can call it classes. And then my balance sheet and cash flow, it's all one kit and caboodle. But that way, when bankers are making financial decisions, they have to look at the whole kit.
Oh, they want to see it all. Yeah.
And some don't, though. You'd be surprised.
Really?
You'd be surprised. Because what I've learned is banks have different appetites for different businesses. So now that I've got this going, I'm shopping banks too. And it's looking for a bank that has an appetite for this.
Yeah. For sure.
If you've experienced
yeah,
that.
no, for sure. Some of them I've met with banks that don't like to work with contractors.
Yeah.
Like there's just some that do, some that don't. Small town bank, it just, it varies. You're very right on that, that some like to be involved in certain businesses for sure.
Or they'll have an appetite for this season, and then 6 months later, they could care less about that.
Well, yeah, if the market tanks and that, or if somebody really screws up big or gives a bad taste. Yeah,
for me, it's been the car sales side of it.
Yeah.
We're in St. Louis, so the big boys is Fuse, Bomberito, Suntrip. My last name is D, none of the above.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, okay, I got to, make
Well,
it
it's
work.
so many lots go under, too. That's the thing with the contractors. A lot of banks don't want to do contractors. So many guys go out on their own, get a big loan, and then flop their business. So it's considered more of a risk. And I would think auto sales would be the same. As many times as you see roadside shops pop up and then they're gone, or the name changes 7 times, or a new one makes the news because they're borrowing money against all the titles and they're not paying them off when they sell the cars and everything else. Like you've seen it a million times. So I can get it. And I watch contractors fail all the time. So I understand when the banks are leery on stuff. I've had many talks where like, dude, we can see you're doing 7 figures. Everything's great. And it's like, I get it, but that's when you got to have your numbers and your business plan, and you've got to have it all laid out to where it makes sense. You can't be like, yeah, but I need the money. Like you gotta have a plan with it, because they also want to know how they're going to make money on it. And I think so many of us get in the mindset of, well, I'm doing this, and I'm making money. Well, they got to make money too.
Yeah, exactly.
They're the one with it that's going to loan it to you to do it. So you got to come in. So how did you kind of get started with the automotive? Have you always been a car person? Like, has this been something you've always kind of fiddled with cars, or?
Yeah, that's a great question. So coming out of high school, I didn't want to go to college.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to do it. I was just like, I'm done with school, but I don't want to just flip burgers. So my mom's second husband, he had a home remodeling business, and he was extremely mechanically inclined. And, I was lost out of high school, 18 years old. I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do with my life. Didn't know where life was going. And I was actually kind of in a bad spot in my life. And we can talk about that too. But he was really mechanically inclined. So I was helping him fix stuff. It's like, you know what? I actually have a knack for this. I found a gift I had no clue I had. So I went through Rankin Tech, downtown St. Louis. It's a trade school. Went through that in the late 90s. And here I am today, 25 years later, still in automotive, still love it, and got
That's
3
awesome.
businesses going, and never thought I would have that. I think I don't know if you can relate to this, but mine just happened.
Yeah.
It wasn't planned. It just happened. And it's like one thing has led to another, led to another, led to another. I'm like, wow, this is really cool.
Yeah, well, and that's how a lot of it is with business owners. Mine, I had planned out having the martial arts school. The painting company wasn't planned. I just kept doing more work, and then realized one day I had employees and was probably going to leave my day job, because I had a day job, the martial arts school, and a painting company.
Damn.
And I was like, all right, something's got to give. But, there's something to be said about learning how to work on stuff with your hands. I had my first car at 8. I've always been a gearhead, always been working on cars. It's how I made side money in high school. Then I worked at Jiffy Lube after high school, and, we'd stay late, throw brakes on somebody's cars off the clock. I got into auto body and stuff, but I just didn't want to. A friend of mine's dad was a very successful, very famous custom automotive upholsterer. Did a lot of high-end hot rods. It was always cool to go to Paul's house, because you never knew what just insane hot rod Jerry had in the garage, because he would have just insane cars over there. He was super sought after for custom upholstery, but he hated cars. He had gotten to where he hated going to car shows or anything, because he would just be badgered and bothered by people wanting, oh man, when can you work on my car? And he's like, I'm not. And, he had told us, he's like, if you guys love this, I would get away from it so that it can still be your fun.
Oh, I get it.
And his sons all went to work on cars. I listened. I was like, oh, it makes a lot of sense. And I was already working as a painter by then. I was like, I'm going to pursue painting and martial arts, and then I'll just dilly-dally with the cars. Like, I hadn't went to school to get trained. I had tossed the idea around about going to Rankin downtown. And but I loved working with my hands. I could always make money with it. Something I've always loved about the trades or anything is you're given a skill that you can always support yourself with.
Right. AI is not going to replace me.
No.
And China's not going to replace us either.
Nope, they're not going to spin a wrench.
No, exactly. They're not gonna. So I love telling the story of how I got all this started.
Yeah,
it's really cool. So I bought a garage with the house in the front yard. That's how I got started.
Nice.
You look up my address on Zillow, according to Zillow, my garage is more square footage than my house. At the time,
sounds like everybody's dream.
Yeah, it's every single guy's dream house. Is I don't care about the house. How do I get this big garage?
Yeah.
You know? And I was selling auto parts at the time, and I started working on their delivery trucks evenings and weekends, making good money. They, for whatever reason, they pulled that away from me, and I got used to that extra money.
Yeah.
So I found, this predates Facebook. This is when people still use Craigslist.
Yeah.
I don't know if Craigslist is still around. I don't use it.
I don't know. I think it actually might still be, but I'm not positive.
Yeah, who knows? But anyway, people used to post on Craigslist, my car needs XYZ.
Yep.
Started replying to these ads, started getting some work, got an LLC, then just worked like a madman and weaned myself, off my day job. How I got into the selling cars is I was about 3 years in and was working full-time on my backyard gig, which, by the way, was completely illegal.
Yeah.
I got 3 tickets in 9 years out of my backyard garage in the neighborhood I lived in. But, the city I just believed in myself and knew that I wasn't ripping anybody off, so I didn't care.
Yeah.
I am Julie Forster with Crafty Midwestern Mommy, your local boutique embroidery and fabric store. I sell fabric as well as sewing notions and also teach classes. And then we also, on the other side of our business, do machine embroidery, custom apparel for local businesses, and just personalized gifts. Again, the store's name is Crafty Midwestern Mommy, and that's how you can find us on all social media platforms as well as our website.
People started asking me, hey, Dave, do you sell cars or do you know anybody that does? So I found a guy that had a dealer license that I could use, because this Missouri State Highway Patrol is not going to sign an application out of a backyard garage.
Yeah, no, for sure.
They're not going to do that. So, and then kept on going. The big turning point for me was in 2016 is I went to the banks and tried to get a loan because I wanted to move out of my backyard to a brick and mortar. Okay. And after getting told no 4 times, like we talked about,
Yep.
They looked at my stuff like it's Egyptian hieroglyphics. I'm like, okay, I got to figure something out. That's when I got connected with SCORE. I'm a huge advocate for SCORE.
They're awesome. They helped me a lot years ago when I opened the type school. Those guys were so beneficial.
I love that. It stands for Society Corps of Retired Executives. It's like a hidden gem.
It is.
And it's a nationwide program. They're affiliated with the SBA. And I sat down with a mentor named Gary Deacon. He owned multiple bus dealerships. So he was in my space. He had 3 bus dealerships. And one of them is Fenton, Arkansas, and Tennessee. So how many hundreds of millions of dollars is that a year?
Yeah, for sure.
I haven't met anybody smarter when it comes to understanding a business from a balance sheet and an income statement. So he taught me business. He taught me all this stuff. This is how you do this. This is how the banks expect when you're doing both of this to have all your financial set up. Summer 2018, found the spot that I'm in. And, we both believe in the law of attraction. It's straight law of attraction is how I got the funds to get the loan to open up my brick and mortar, which I have today.
Yeah.
And what I believe is what's the law of attraction is I did everything Gary said. The law of attraction doesn't mind if you ask questions.
Yeah.
You can't question it.
Yeah.
You start questioning the law of attraction, ain't going to give you nothing. That's why it's called the law of attraction.
Yeah.
So I would literally did this. I'd sit on my deck and talk to myself, talk out to God. The universe.
Yep.
I believe God, good early direction. Yep. I went to AA meetings for 17 years. That's a whole nother story in my life, but that's called Group of Drugs, but good early direction. And I just told myself, I will have a 3-bay auto repair and sales business in Maryland Heights. I did that every day. I did everything Gary wanted me to do. And, this is, I love this part. I love this story. So, I had a line of credit with the bank for about $15K.
Yeah.
Went to buy a truck for a friend of mine through the dealer auction, right? F-150. He called, I got it. Next day he says, Dave, I don't have any money. Okay, cool. No big deal. It's an F-150. I'll sell it. No problem. So I go to the bank to pay back my line of credit. Well, the teller closed the account on me, right? So fast forward a couple months. This was in summer 2018, June, July. Fast forward to August, I was working with a freelance bookkeeper. She wanted to know about this account. And I'm like, I have no idea. So I start panicking. So I go in and meet. And by this whole time, I was working with Gary Deacon on writing a business plan for the space I'm in. And I was doing everything Gary wanted me to. If he said jump, I said how high and how many times. I'd ask questions, but I didn't question anything that Gary said. So I walk into U.S. Bank and I talk to this lady and she goes, oh, sweet. You're approved we can give you a line of credit now instead of 15 for 50K. She goes, and she goes, let me introduce you. I start talking about this building that I was looking at that I wanted to have, and I had no idea where I was going to get the money. And then she introduced me to another banker named Todd Mokentine, and I talked to him. He comes out and says, you're automatically pre-approved for a $48,000 working capital loan and $150 to use on equipment. I got the money.
There you go.
That's the law of attraction.
Yep.
And it's
meant to happen.
Yeah, it was meant to happen. My financials aren't where they are today, but the law of attraction rewarded me because I knew what I wanted, I believed, and I was committed to doing the work.
Well, and you work. You're committed to doing the work. That's the part everybody forgets. They see so much stuff on social media that if I dream it and I believe in it, it's going to happen. Well, they forget about the work part.
The work was me doing everything Gary said, because Gary put together a business plan to know, okay, this is what this is the equipment you have. This is what you're going to need. How much does that cost? We put together an income statement on a balance sheet on an Excel spreadsheet to make sure that here's my break even. How much business do I need? All that stuff. And I did everything he said. Right. And then that's why the law of attraction rewarded me. And it rewarded me when I went into US Bank, because like I said, I believed in myself. I knew what I wanted, and I was committed to doing what Gary said.
When you'd done the due diligence, and you listened to someone that knew what they were doing. I find so many people, I'll have painters, get a job for me, or I'll have people come in, hey man, I'm gonna give up on my own thing, I want to get a job, and I'll offer to coach them, help them with it. No, they don't want it. They don't want it. They already know everything, and they've done it wrong, even though I have a business. Or I'll hire them, and then they'll be like, you're just doing everything wrong. I did it this way. And it's like, didn't you just say you went out of business? Like, you have to listen to people.
Right.
Not everybody, but if you see someone that's over here and they're doing $5 million, $10 million a year, and they offer to help you and you're not doing 10 million, well, then maybe you should listen to them, because obviously they did something to get there. And those people normally don't just give you frivolous advice either. Like normally people just walk up and like randomly give you advice, normally are nowhere.
That's an opinion.
Yeah. They're normally like telling you what you should do, but they didn't do it. So you don't want to listen to them, but someone that really knows it, like you had someone that knew what to do, and gave you the roadmap. It said, follow this and this and this, and it worked. And that's how you got it there.
Yeah, it absolutely worked. And I've taught this and talked about this and taught it. And, the challenging thing is, fast forward 5 years now, it's like I'm working on how do I replicate this?
Oh, yeah.
Which is challenging for me, replicating this and redoing it again, because new fears, new insecurities, new worries, doubts are coming up. And I'm learning how those show up in my life.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I'm afraid of doing,
the feeling exactly.
Yeah, I'm afraid of doing X. Okay, well, where does that feel really come from? And it's unwinding that and untwisting that so that way I could take my life. I built my businesses, dude, out of fear and insecurity. I'm worried about how's this going to be look. What am I get? I'm feeling broken, unwanted, I'm different, I'm something, I'm all those things. And then some of the entrepreneurs that we know from guys at that BOA live event, like my friend Mike Kitko, is, they told me that's not how it works, Dave. And so what it is, it's learning how to do this again from a place of inspiration, not running from something.
Yes. Or, like when I built my painting company or my school, my Taekwondo school, I built it off just hard work. I could go teach as many students. I could go teach them everywhere for free, and I built my brand. I paint everything. Rich and I painted 7 days a week until I built up the crews and everything to not work 7 days a week, because that's all I ever knew is how just to work harder than the guy next to me. And I implemented things. Well, now building my coaching and my speaking stuff, it's not really a work harder type thing. I have to put things in place. I have to have sales funnels. It's all this other stuff. And my urge, even though I've done all these other things, it's been great. My urge is like the other day I told my wife, so I'm just going to quit all of it. I'm just going to go paint a bunch of houses, because it's not easy to paint, but it's easy for me to paint, and it's safe, and it's, your inner voice starts really trying to talk you out of that stuff hard.
Yep. So you ever read the book, The E-Myth? From Michael Gerber? I've read it twice.
I have it, but I haven't read it.
So what Michael talks about in that book, it's a great book, is there's three personalities in an entrepreneur. There's the manager, the technician, and the entrepreneur. So when you said, I'm just going to go paint houses, that's the technician. I'm just going to do this, have everything else, right? Yep. The manager is, we're going to have everything ready when the customer gets here. Yeah. But we're not doing anything to get the customer. Then the entrepreneur is, I'm going to go get all this business, and we have no systems and process to handle it.
Yep.
So what he talks about in that book is how to blend all those three, right? And which one do we default to?
Makes sense.
You know, I can default to them. And mine has changed. It used to be the technician. Now it's the manager. Like, we're going to have this place spotless. We're going to have every bolt here, every nut here, but then there's no customers.
Yes. Yeah. No, and you really do. And that's a great one. I need to read that one because that makes a lot of sense with, I talk to you all the time. They got the one person that's a dreamer and they got all these great ideas. They have no idea how to institute anything. Or if they do, once they get the work, they can't handle the work.
Right.
Like, it really takes a special entrepreneur to be able to do it all and then hire for your weaknesses. If you're really bad at A, B, and C, well, then hire someone that's good at it to help, but you have to get to a point where you can afford that. Like, it's such a juggling act sometimes.
It is a juggling act, and I think you just got to gut it out till you get to that point that you can hire. You know, my repair business is on autopilot. It runs without me. It's not dependent on me. And was because I hired people that are better at the positions than I am that they're working in.
Yep.
You know, and it's a testament about their culture, you know. So, you know, I'm an adoptive child. You know, I know some things about my biological family. And here's kind of like my personal life is just imagine being 15 years old and having no parental guidance or adult supervision from that point on in life. That's what my adoptive parents pretty much did to me. Right. So I grew up, you know, feeling unwanted, broken. So like my adoptive family's kind of left me hung out to dry. My biological didn't really want me because otherwise I'd, you know, would have grown up with them. Right. Exactly. So the culture that I bit in my shop is I'm going to make these people just feel so appreciated. They're not going to go anywhere. And that's a yin and yang. Some of that is because of that, and some of that is out of fear because I don't want to be abandoned.
Yep.
You know, this is the stuff that I'm working through that as I heal this, my life's going to take off. Then as it takes off, my businesses will be a byproduct of that because they'll take off.
Yep.
But yeah. So the culture that I've built there, you know, is making them feel appreciated. And
and that's a big thing.
Because they could probably go get more money working for somebody else, but I don't know if they're going to appreciate them the way I do. Because what I found is employees, money's not the all be all. They want security, but they want to feel valued and they want to feel appreciated.
And that's hard to do. That's hard to do sometimes with people because, you know, sometimes if you do reprimand them for something that is wrong on a job, it's, oh, now I'm not appreciated. No, you're appreciated, but you made a mistake. Like, trying to teach that stuff and make it a learning opportunity and structure it in that way to where they still feel appreciated, but they understand that, hey, we got to do better.
Yeah.
Like, that's a very hard place. I did a lot of Arte with Andy Frischella and Ed Milet, and Andy talks about that a lot with what he's done at First Form. And it's visible. If you ever get a chance to tour First Form or be down there, the proof's in the pudding with it, the way he talks and the lessons he teaches about building culture. And I strive to do that. Actually, a podcast I just had recently, we discussed that, how culture is such an important part. And that's been a struggle for me. I came from the martial arts background. I have a great culture at my dojo. But then the painting company, it was a struggle because I was dealing with so many different people. And I was dealing with grown men my age that weren't really that driven. Now, the guys I got now are driven. They love their job. It's great. We have a great rapport. I've had less turnover this year than ever. But it wasn't always like that because I'd get some guy that wanted this, or I'd hire a guy whose business had failed, and then he would do nothing but gripe to the other crews all the time about how he could do it better. I had a couple of those dudes come through, and so that's like a big turnoff now if someone puts that on their resume. Well, I had my own painting company for 10 years, but now I want to come to work for you. It's like, nope, I'm good. You're going to be nothing but a problem. Like, learning that. And that's something when people see the things you're doing, it's because you've built that culture on the auto side that you can now do the other things. Mm-hmm. You know, my painting company, I have a good culture. I have a good culture at martial arts school that allows me to do my podcast, do my coaching, do my speaking. Like, I could do that because they're not relying on me 24/7. And I think some entrepreneurs enjoy everybody being reliant on them. I think they almost build the businesses to where everything's around them. And, oh man, if I took a day off, do you know what would happen? And it's like, yeah, everything would fall apart because you built it in a really poor way.
Yeah.
And I feel I meet entrepreneurs that feel that way. They'll be like, oh, I can't do nothing. Everybody's got to come to me for everything. And that was one of my goals with the painting company is I was like, I'm not going to build something that's relying on me 24/7.
That's a straight ego. Like last year,
it is. I believe so.
Me and my girlfriend, we went to Alaska for 2 weeks. Then later the year, we went to Sedona for a week. We haven't traveled this year, but traditionally we travel 2 or 3 weeks a year. And that's because the shop's fine.
Yes.
You know, it's fine. No, I can relate to that. I've had some not so good employees, and anybody that owned an auto repair shop and then it went under and they wanted to apply, I would do the thing, nah.
Yep.
You know, so
there's always things there. They were doing something wrong.
They were doing something wrong, right? it would take the right person with the right personality to really know that, hey, this isn't for me. But yeah, I can see that in automotive world. Oh, I could do it better. Him and
and that's what we ran into. And the reason I would hire those people in the first place is, so the way I have the painting company set up is I have 6 crews. The foreman on each crew is basically the manager. They meet me in the morning in the shop. We break everything down. We make sure it's in the trucks. They get their work orders. We discuss the jobs, and they go out and do them. And then they each have 1 to 2 employees with them. Not always the same employees. I switch everybody around based on their strengths. But because of that setup, they're almost entrepreneurial in the fact they have to show up the job, they have to manage the job site, they have to get it done under expectations. Just at the end of the day, the financial part's on me. They're paid hourly. You know, I come out and help them out with things. If they need products, I run it to them. So in the beginning, I would hire guys that had their own thing that went under, because I was like, well, this is basically the same thing. You're going to the job, you're doing it yourself, you have the tools and everything, but I'm not standing there hovering over you. You know, that was one of the biggest learning points for me is, say you had a 6-bay shop that I've got 6 crews, so basically a 6-bay shop, but they're all over the place. So I have to go and visit and also do my job and run them some paint if they need it. It's not like we're in the same place and I can get it brought to them all the time. So it was interesting at building that out, because I liked the fact that someone was entrepreneurial and had failed, because cool, you get to run one of the vans, you get to be on the job site, you get to deal with the customer, but at the end of the day, the finances are on me. I'm handling that. I'm making sure you got materials. I'm taking some of that part out of it. And it didn't work with those guys. Now, guys that are independent but do not want the financial responsibility of being an entrepreneur, which we know there's a lot of entrepreneurs like that. There's a lot of people that don't want that responsibility. Now, those are my guys. That's what I've learned to look for with painting. Guys that are independent, don't want a boss breathing down their neck, but at the same time have no interest in really having their own business because of the headaches and the financial liabilities for it. Perfect. That's great. I'll handle that part. You guys paint the houses, and we're going to make this work real well. I pay very good. Top notch. I mean, my main foreman's been with me for 6 years now, makes $75,000 a year as a painter. Like, they're paid well. And I do that because I want them to stay. I want to create a great work environment. I don't want the turnover. And I know they're worth it because they're really good at what they do. Mm-hmm. That's the hardest thing with building this stuff out, too, is people don't see the ups and downs. People see right now, they're like, oh, he's got a great shop, and oh, he gets to do this, that must be nice. It's like, whoa, let's back this up. You know, the first time we did one of the local parades, we had, how many did I have in it? I had all 6 vans, both trailers. I think I had 11 vehicles in it that were all wrapped in it. And I heard a lot of must be nice or golly, money bags. And it's like, well, no, that my money's wrapped up in this. Like, but it's taken me years to build it. People don't always see that part with entrepreneurs. And I think that's one of the things that affects all of us mentally too. It's hard.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's this, you know, and this is what
all
it
over
is.
The place, up and down.
Right. I think for, you know, just thinking of where I'm at in my entrepreneurial journey is it's helping me realize, okay, what am I really afraid of? What's really blocking me? You talked about mistakes. Like that can be challenging for me to go to my employees and say, hey, you made a mistake, or talk to them about something that I didn't like. I want them to do it this way. That can be challenging, right? So
it's a hard conversation.
Right. That goes back to childhood trauma, right, that I experienced, and this is how it's showing up in my life. So it's me learning, just practice a little bit. Like, one of the things I struggled with or was afraid of was weekly team meetings. So, you know, I work with an automotive coach, right? So we went through one today, and anytime I've done these, I just felt anxiety. I'm like, I'm not showing up. I'm showing up like a scared little boy instead of an inspired, confident entrepreneur. Well, how is that projecting on them? How are they taking it?
And as their leader, you can't do that.
Yeah, I haven't flat out asked them, but I can feel it inside myself, and it's like, okay, I'm uncovering how is this? Okay, this is what happened. This is how it's showing up. Let me close that gap, and then this is going to take off. If you want to find out what you're made of, I've told everybody, start a business, and try to make the damn thing successful, and you'll find out what you're made of.
Well, and then you learn all about the managing people. Like, I can rally my students up, get them pumped up, get them lined up, teach lessons, no problem. But then when I would come to sitting down with my employees and going through things, I would really struggle between, you know, when I used to manage Jiffy Lubes when I was 21, I had a stack of applications this big. Always had people wanting a job. So I would literally just, when we started having a lot of slacking issues at the shop, say I had 7 people working for me, I'd hire 7 more. And a Monday morning, we'd have a meeting. Sorry, Melissa, if you're listening, because I know this brings back so many memories of what a horrible boss I was. She every once in a while text me. She's like, God, you sucked at being a boss. And I was bad. I'd have 7 people positions. I'd have 14 in the lobby. And I'd say, guess what? Today marks the day. I have 7 positions on Friday. 7 of you will be here. 7 of you won't. Basically, fuck around, find out. Let's see how this week goes. You're gonna toe the line. You're gonna do what you're told. You're gonna work hard, or you're gone. And I would just fire them as the day progressed. I'd fire people. Horrible way to do it. In this day and age where you don't have that type of workforce want to come in, you can't do that stuff. So you have to work with people, and you have to do different things, and you have to realize that it's easy for us as business owners to look at it as just the business side of it, but we have to remember they're humans too. They're struggling with different things. Just because we get out of the bed and attack the day every day doesn't mean our employees will. And that's been my biggest struggle. I've always been a go-getter, a hard worker. And so then when I deal with employees, I have to remember, maybe their dog being sick this weekend meant more to them than this job. Like maybe I need to, there's ways that you have to look at it that's different.
Yeah. So this is awesome. I love this conversation. So one of my master tech, I'm in my mid 40s. He's in his early 40s. I can treat him like I was treated because how we were brought up. Where I can half-ass appreciate him. As long as he gets a paycheck, he doesn't care.
Yeah.
There's not much. Now I got 2 young ladies that work with me, right? One's 32, and the other one's 22. I can't treat them the way I treat Nick. Otherwise, they'd be gone.
Yep.
So what I found is the younger generation, they want to feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves.
Yeah.
Nick, he doesn't.
Our age group doesn't
care. Right. So it's like, that's real. And this whole thing about people don't want to work, I think that's BS. I'm calling flat out BS. What COVID brought out is the way people can work has completely changed.
Yeah.
That's why the job market is the way it is, because people can now work way differently than they could prior to March 2020.
Yeah.
And it's not that people want to work.
No, I completely agree. I have people all the time tell me, well, if I could get employees, I could grow. And it's like, well, I literally have been turning people down. I turned down 7 home builders in 1 week. I've turned down multiple people that wanted to come work for me. I 2 weeks ago and one day I had 4 text messages from people I knew that knew someone that wanted a painting job. And I'm like, I don't want to take anyone else on right now because of everything else I've got going. I've got 12 guys. We're doing fine. Crews are running smooth. I'm not in a building phase right now with Boyer Painting. I'm in a revitalizing and training and doing some different things with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I have the people, whereas I talk to people all the time, they're like, oh, I just can't get anyone. It's like, well, what are you doing? Because but like you said with your main tech, like me and Rich has been with me forever. We came up in the epitome of construction where your foreman abused you. Everybody was mean to each other, and that's just how you communicate.
Right.
Rich and I laugh all the time with these younger guys who are with us. We're like, you wouldn't have made it a week on a job site that we came up on.
No.
We're like, you wouldn't have made it
a day.
Yeah. I was like, you guys would have been gone by lunch. They'd have wrote you your check and said, get out of here because you're too soft. And because we talk all the time, I'm like, man, if we could just treat them like our bosses treated us. Rich is like, dude, we would be alone. I'm like, because we discussed it when we started building it up. I'm like, all right, we gotta deal with this differently than our bosses did us. Your boss, my boss would take me outside, rip me one end to the other, roast me all day long if I was going slow. I'd come in the next day hell bent on outpainting him to prove him wrong. If I did that to these guys now, like I even have to watch it because I'll get to messing with them sometimes. Rich and I'll get to joking around and we'll have to tone it back a little bit. Because I'm like, okay, I think I hurt someone's feelings. And it's just being silly, joking, but not everybody can take that. And in this day and age, it's just not the way it was 20 years ago.
Well, yes, it's an evolution of society, our society. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it. People think, oh, these new generations, they're soft.
No, it's just the way you got to manage them.
Exactly. I mean, as our society has changed, as people have changed, and we're in this new technological age, if I treated, Nick, we got her exactly. Like, when you're talking about your foreman ripping you upside, dude, I'm just sitting here laughing because, been there, done that. And some of the shops I worked in when I got into this, they tested you day one.
Yep.
They were going to find out, okay, are you weak? Are you soft? Because the people that I've seen come into automotive, I'm like, you won't last You'd be lucky to make it till lunchtime before you're running out the door crying.
I worked at a body shop. I only worked there a couple weeks. I went back to work at Jiffy Lube because I realized they just weren't working out. But literally, they told me, they're like, this is like prison. This is before I got into construction. Which, in construction, they told me this is like prison too. But I got into it, and he goes, if
that's funny.
I forgot the guy's name. He had a guy that worked there. Royce owned the shop. This other guy worked there. And he goes, Vinny. He said, if Vinny comes over and Vinny tries to give you a hug, you got to give him a kiss. If Vinny runs through the shop with his pants down, you got to chase after him, try to smack him on the butt. You got to one-up Vinny, everything he does, or you're weak, or they're going to come down on you so hard. And they would play jokes. They sent me my first day to get a line wrench. Well, I was looking for a boxed end wrench for a line, for brake lines.
Sure.
I knew what that was. They meant a razor blade for cutting lines of Coke. I had no clue. I had never done Coke. I was wandering all over the shop. I'm like, this line wrench? No, not that line wrench. They hazed me all day.
That's funny.
I mean, it was insane, the stuff they did. Like, it was absolutely, when I talk about my body shop years or mechanic years, or even when I first got my first week in construction, was on the job site, come down the hall, and the siding foreman was standing there. And this guy was a degenerate. And I said, I'm martial arts background. I've always been a polite kid. I'm like, excuse me. He didn't move. And he's in the hallway talking, ranting to people, whatever. He's supposed to be out in his truck watching his crews, but they were all drunk. Because he'd pick up a couple 30 packs to feed them for breakfast. And seriously, when I first started, they said, if you hear someone fall and scream, it's one of Jesse's guys falling off the pick boards. That just means it's lunchtime. And I was like, oh, whatever, they're hazing me. 11:55. Ooh! They're like, oh, gotta be lunch. Siding guys are drunk. I was like, you guys weren't hazing me. Wow, this is an interesting world. This was new to me. I was a sheltered child. Well, I'm standing behind Jesse in the hallway. I said, excuse me. Pardon me. And my boss, Don, was like mentoring me. We were martial arts guards, so I got the job. He's watching me from down the hall. It was a split level house, so he could see me. He's out in the living room. And I'm like, pardon me. I said, excuse me. I said, hey, man, can you move? Jesse's just going, finally, I was like, listen, you degenerate. I just laid get your fat, stinky ass out of my way. I mean, I laid into him. Oh, man, why didn't you say something? He just moved right over. And I just looked at Don. I'm like, because I was like, I guess this guy's going to try and hit me. And the guy was like, oh, man, my bad, man. Why didn't you say something? And I walked past Don, and Don goes, welcome to the subdivisions. And I was like, he goes, please, thank you. Excuse, it doesn't work. He said, it's a different world out there.
Right.
And he used to tease me all the time because I would like have this hour after I left work before I went to teach Taekwondo. And I always had to have that hour to like get a shower, cool my head, and go from construction job site, Matt, calling everybody a MFer, to, hey guys, I'm here to teach karate tonight, because I had to like flip my brain around, because on those job sites, it was a different world. You were dealing with a lot of degenerates. You were dealing with a lot of alcoholics, just rough and tumbled people. You work differently with them. That is not how it is now. I work for several builders, and my superintendents are 25-year-old college educated in construction trades. I'm not dealing with an old superintendent that's smoking 3 packs a day and drinking his lunch. Like, that's what I grew up on. Like, I literally used to argue. I remember going out in the street to fight a superintendent one time because we got into it. He kept mouthing, calling me a fag on the job site. And I said, meet me out front. Like, that's not the world we live in these days. It's not that. It's completely different these days. And so you have to learn to manage people differently too. Our age group is not, they're going to respond like we would. But your 25-year-olds, your 30-year-olds are not.
No.
They're looking for different things too. Like us, I always look for a job that paid really good. Man, people nowadays want paid time off. They want travel time. They want to be part of something bigger. Like you said, they're wanting more than just that dollar at the end of the check.
Yep. So on mine, I don't have a pay time off policy.
Yeah.
I just flat out don't.
Yeah. I don't either.
When I've advertised for hiring, I put something out there because I could put that out there and I would not advise it. So the guys that got bigger businesses that I have, that got great cultures, they says, Dave, when you got the right people, it doesn't matter. They won't abuse it. Actually, they say they take less. Like Nick last year, I have no idea how many days. I don't keep score.
Yeah.
He just gets paid because he doesn't abuse it. Same thing. And it's like, if one of my employees needs to leave early, they'll leave early and I don't dock them for it.
Yeah.
And they know, like, hey, if it's because texts get done at 4:30, right? If I can have this car done, no, they get done at 4 o'clock. So if they know, hey, I got another 15 minutes to have this car done, they're going to stay that 15 minutes to get the car done.
Yep.
But that's the culture. That's the atmosphere. and it just works. So I've told them all, we don't have a PTO. It's not tit for tat. You scratch my back, I'll scratch your back.
Take care.
And nobody's keeping score.
Yeah. Well, and like for years around Christmas time, my main guy, Rich, he liked to have extra Christmas money. Whereas some of the guys that go borrow money for Christmas, I've got one that always does that. Rich would just, can I work Sundays? Sure. What Sundays you want to work, man? And I'd make sure he could have all the OT he wanted because he does all my new construction stuff. He'd be like, there's some stuff I could get done over there. And he'd come in and work. And sometimes he'd go home at 2. He'd be like, there wasn't 8 hours work today. I just didn't. I got caught up by 2 o'clock. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
But I would work with him. I don't force that stuff, but they know if they do want Saturdays or they do want that extra stuff, they can have it. If they got a day during the week that they need off and it's for something, no problem. You're off. If they want to come in like Memorial Day, I was like, does anybody want to work? Because Rich and I used to work all those holidays because I was building the business up. He was getting his family established. He wanted the money. And this one, everybody was like, no, you know what? We're doing good. I was like, cool, great. Well, I'll have the day off. I'm going to get some paperwork done.
Love it.
Everybody's take care of, but you have to do those things to grow your business. It's all about that culture, and I think that we're all constantly learning that.
Well, the employees want to know that we got their back.
Yes.
We got their back. We got their back. We'll defend them. We're there for them. And it's a way that I've learned too to help hold them accountable.
Yes.
It's like, okay, how do I, one of my core values, it's called, growth oriented, do more than what's expected. Because I told them all, just because you've been here doesn't mean you're going to get more money. It's like, if you want to get more out of me, what have you done to earn it? How much value? Like I had a young technician, she got her state inspector's license. Okay, well, that's going to add value.
Yep.
Because now she can do something she used to not be able to do because she wasn't licensed. Well, then she got rewarded. Like if she passes those AZ certifications, she'll get rewarded because it's adding.
You're adding value.
It's adding value, and it's teaching them too. It's like I got the right people. I got people in here that don't expect that aren't entitled to it.
Well, but that didn't just happen though, that you had the right people. You've probably been through a lot. Like I told someone earlier, I sent out last year 47 W-2s. The year before that, it was in the 50s. Like I've gone through a lot of people because I would get desperate and hire people and make those mistakes. I right now have a great culture, and I have every single person I got is, they've got a family, they're working hard, they've got responsibilities. Whereas at one point I had a bunch of 20-somethings that didn't have any of that, and I could never get no one to come to work. Or they'd blow every penny by Friday afternoon and be hitting me up to borrow money for next week, which I don't do. No. Like I'll help people out. Like if one of my guys that's been with me for a while was like got in a pickle, it's fine. But you always have that one dude that constantly is hitting everybody up for lunch money.
I had that guy, and he's no longer there.
Yeah, and you always get one of those, and you just got to get rid of them. But people don't realize the work you put in to get to where you're at with that crew. Like you went through a lot of shitty crews to get there.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that's just part of the journey, and
it is.
It's just part of it. So how I've found everybody, it's word of mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Finding.
Do you ever find good luck with Indeed or any of that stuff? Actually, or do you find better luck with word of mouth?
No, actually, my service advisor that we got, I found her from Indeed.
Yeah.
And from my experience throughout. So one thing that I've learned is the first thing is I want people that are committed to automotive. They're dedicated. So this is how I define a career versus a job. So like me and Nick, we've been in automotive for 20 something years. That's a career. I've had different jobs.
Yes.
I've worked in new car dealerships, sold auto parts, ran a car X. But it's been all automotive. So that's a career. Cause I hired a childhood friend of mine. Looking back, he just had a bunch of jobs because they were always sales positions, but they were all different industries. That's a job. That means you don't know what you want to be when you grow up. So what I look for is people that are dedicated to automotive. That's the first.
I look at the same thing on Indeed. You'll get it. They did this, they did this, they did this, they did this. It's like, were you just taking whatever you like? Did you just throw a dart at the wall of like a list of jobs and pick? Because none of it's cohesive. Even if they haven't painted, if they've had all construction trade jobs or construction related, I'll give them a shot. But if they worked at Burger King, or maybe they power washed, or maybe they sold auto warranties, like if it just bounces down that they did like 20 different things that are not related, I agree. That's kind of a red flag. You just don't know what you want to do.
That's what I've learned. And so the first thing that I've talked about when I interviewed Sarah is to day one is like, I want to make sure you're dedicated to doing this. And how she answered that question, well, then I hired her. I hired for my new service fire's position. I hired the very first person I interviewed. You know why? Because I got experience. I trust my gut.
Yep.
I trust my instincts. I get that. Fire slow, hire fast. That's for people that don't have experience.
Yeah.
When you get experience, you can hire the first one because I'm hiring off experience, not that. And then, I interviewed then too. What I've worked on is recruiting. How can I have that stack of resumes for technicians, for advisors? Because nobody in my company is going to leave unless it's a life-changing event.
Yep.
And we never know when that's going to happen. So they all know that I'm stacking this. So that way, in the event that happens to somebody, the rest of us can still keep running because it's going to benefit everybody. The quicker I can fill that position or in the event.
Yeah, I always hate that post where people are like, if you were to die, your boss would have your position filled before your body was in the ground. Duh, they have to, because otherwise your coworkers are screwed and everybody else up a creek. It doesn't mean they don't care. I always hate that one. I try not to go on and argue with people when they post it, because it's, if something happened to one of my foremen, I would have to put someone in their place immediately to keep everybody else working. But then we would mourn that person. It's just part of it's being a responsible business owner. I hate that crap. But no, you're right. You do learn. And I had a friend reach out a while back. Goes, what do you do to find employees? I was like, I've done Indeed. I've done Facebook post. Like, referrals are normally the top notch for me, because I find with referrals, they know about my business. Like, I talked to a guy that worked C. Bennett Cabinet Company, huge cabinet company. And he told me when they bring people in for a pre-interview, they ask them 3 questions, and it's stuff about the business to see people even know who the hell they are. Because I asked him, I said, I get people apply for jobs all the time. I'll be like, well, you get one of the red vans. And people will be like, what red van? I'm like, that's like our trade. Like, you haven't looked at any of our social media to see I have 6 red vans running around. Our catchphrase is follow the red van. No, man, I didn't even pull you up on Facebook. Cool. See you around. Because you don't care enough. Like, it just baffles me that they don't check that stuff out. Like, my Facebook profile for years, even before I made it a business one, was public. So if people wanted to hire us, they could research me, because I would look into a business and I would click on the owner's profile and it would be blocked. And I'm like, ooh, I don't know if I like that. So I always left my stuff public so people could check me out. And I find that, like, if it's a referral-based employee, a lot of times maybe they've done a little due diligence. And I like it when someone reaches out to me that has a job and they're looking for a better option. Not a dude that's like, yeah, man, I've been sitting home. The wife finally was like, it's a divorce or go to work, and beat Super Mario Kart like 25 times. Like, I've had people do that. I'm like, see ya. Like, I've hired them in the past, but it's one of those things that experience has taught me to be like, see you around.
Yeah, you know what to look for. That's funny. I
had a friend call this morning out of the blue. She goes, can I talk to you? I'm having a problem in my martial arts school. She goes, I think your experience will help me. We had a great conversation. And I told her, you already know what you got to do. You've got a new parent that's toxic. You've got a very small school. She's just started it a couple months ago. You got to cut them loose. I wouldn't even let them come to class tonight. I said, the guy sent you a really disrespectful message. They got to go. I was like, it's my biggest regret I have from both of my businesses for years is I thought I could help them, teach them. Oh, if I let go of them, who's going to fill their spot? Fire quick. And I guarantee you probably.
Oh, I've learned to fire quicker ever than ever before.
Yeah. Right. I look back at so many times. I'm like, yeah, I wish I had a red button. Boom, they dropped it. See ya.
I'm 2 for 3 for disputing unemployment claims.
Yeah.
I have 3 filed against me, and I've won 2.
Nice. I haven't had any of those yet, but they'll be coming. But no, it is, the hire slow. You don't have to hire slow, but you do have to fire quick. You can't keep it.
You got to fire quick. Yeah, fire quick, definitely. I think the hire slow is good for individuals that don't have our experience.
Yes, if they don't have the experience.
Once you get the experience, but like I said, I hired the first one, and she's working out. She's going to be rock.
Well, even if you hire someone fast that's bad, just fire them quick. Just move on. Pull the Band-Aid off. Because especially with the position like we're in, where I'm not physically with each crew every day. Like in the beginning, Rich and I look back at the photos from when we first started, and we look at the crew that was with us when we very first started. We just shake our heads like, how did we do it? I'm like, did we really work that hard that we were able to keep those dummies employed? Like, wow. Like, because we look around who we got now, because we'll be flustered with things or something, and I'll be like, look who we got, look who we had. Rich is like, yep, I'm good, I'm grateful. I'm like, yeah, it's wild. But as I grew, that was a big thing to get over, because I wasn't on the job site. At the beginning, it was just one crew. Rich and I were there every day, or if we weren't together, it was him going to do stuff without me. I still had the other dummies under control. And they follow this page. Heather's going to see this. Yes, I just called you a dummy. You can kick me next time I see you, because we're actually still friends. A couple of them have went out to do their own thing, and I helped them with it. But the place they were in life back then, I mean, they've even admitted, they're like, I don't know how, like, you know, we did this. I went to do a spray out for a builder one night after worked all day, taught Taekwondo, and then at 10 o'clock at night went to a spray out. And I called the guys. I was like, hey, if we want this builder, we got to go do the spray out. Will anyone come in tonight and help me? I'll pay you. I had a Mountain Dew. I didn't know they were bumping cocaine on their way there, and we painted this whole house in one night. I had no clue. I was drinking Mountain Dew still. They told me later, because I was like, man, you guys were flying that night. They're like, yeah, well, we had some help. Like, they were in a bad place back then.
Yeah.
I had no clue. I was a new business owner, and I probably overlooked a lot of that stuff, just looked past it because we were.
You're not doing that, sir. You're thinking.
Yeah, and I've never done it. Yes, right. And plus, we were growing so fast, I didn't want to. I was like, don't sweat. I came from a shop where they bitched about everything you did. They sweat. Like, if you didn't buy the brand paintbrush the boss wanted you to have, he'd rip your ass for it. Wow. So, like, I've tried to not sweat that type of stuff. I had to kind of find that happy medium. Mm-hmm. That'd be like you going, oh, no, you're not using Craftsman. We're only using this brand. Like,
right.
That's dumb. If it gets a job done, let them get their job done.
Who cares?
Yeah. I almost took that too far. And I did the same thing with martial arts. I was almost too lax in the beginning because I came from a very strict school. And you yes sir everything and bow everything. And so when I opened my dojo, I was like, knock that crap.
You don't want to be, you want to, it's like, I think entrepreneurs want to be for others what they didn't have.
Yes.
You know, so like
sometimes that goes wrong.
Yeah, that's what I've been. You know, that's what I was like, how can I be for, you know, how can I be a boss that that I know Nick sure as hell didn't have, because he's my age. So we both worked for a lot of, you know, shitheads over the years. Mm-hmm. But, you know, how can I be for others what they didn't have? I think that's what entrepreneurs, they were real strict, blah, blah, blah. Well, I didn't like that, so I'm not going to do that. And then it's finding that balance.
Yes, and that's the hardest part. People look at it, like I told my friend this morning, I was like, a lot of people that we came up with that were around us when we were younger, because we've been friends for 30 years now through martial arts, and we actually did live anywhere near each other. We just would compete in the same tournaments. She's a girl. We didn't compete against each other, but we were always at the same tournaments, still friends years later. I told her, so a lot of people crap on me because I did this style, and then we switched, then we did this tournament, then we did this, and then I changed our uniform. But that was me finding what works, because she was telling me she really likes the look and the colors and everything in our school. And I said, thank you. It's taken 15 years for me to figure it out. Like, now when people are like, what would you differently? I'm like, nothing. I love the way it's set up. I love the size. Everything about it's exactly. I said, the only thing I would do differently is if I had $1 million, I would replace all the equipment once a year, because I hate it when the equipment starts to look worn. But it can't be brand new all the time. We hit and kick and do stuff with it. It gets beat up. That's its job. So every so often I replace it, but it doesn't make sense to do it every year. You know, heavy bags are $500. I have 11 of them. You can't just replace those because they're getting they're getting some scuffs on them. Like, they look great to everyone else, but to me, I'm like, ooh, that one's got a scuff. Well, that's not a reason to replace it, you know, but that's just me. But that's something that comes with what we do and learning.
Yeah, absolutely. Those scuff marks can like, everything's about customer perception, perceived value, right? So it's like, okay, if you have a martial arts gym and I come in and I see, you know, everything's perfect. Well, do they do anything here?
Yeah.
Am I going to learn anything here? But if I see some stuff that's kind of half-ass beat up a little bit.
Okay, it can't be falling apart.
Yeah, it can't be falling apart, but it can't be brand new.
Well, I explain that to my instructors too, because they'll get embarrassed sometimes. I've got, you know, Riley's been with me 10 years, Emily, Kendall, all these kids, Bella, you know, all of them, they've been with me a long time. They're super talented, but they're humble. And they're confident, but they're humble. But when we have like a beginner class and we've got a brand new group integrating into the school, we'll do some drills, and I'll be like, well, here, and I'll grab him. Hey, go put your gloves on real quick. She'll put her boxing gloves on. I'll be like, you know, here's one of the drills we can get to later. Well, she's super fast, super talented. And I'll run her through a drill and let her show off for a minute. And they're always like, wait, it's kind of embarrassing. I'm like, yeah, but the parents, all they see is me teaching, you guys out here helping in your uniforms, and they have their leadership stuff on. They don't really know if you're good or not. So every once in a while, we need to let them know, because I don't make enough and I don't make enough content on it. I could honestly have a full-time, you know, Joey and these guys up here could do full-time content on just my dojo with all the stuff we do. But it's perceived value. They got to see it. When they see the girls out there being confident, it's great. But when they see Emily light up the mitts or light up one of the bags, they go, oh yeah, my daughter should be able to defend herself. she's going to be confident and she's going to be able to hit like that. That's good. So you have to remind them of that once in a while. You have to show them, you know, it's just part of being a business owner, I think. What advice would you give a younger version of you, someone that's wanting to start out in the automotive space? What's a couple, before we wrap up, what's something you'd give? Man. It's always a hard one for me too.
It is. I think it would be work on your vulnerability, because I think the level of our success is directly proportional to the level of our vulnerability.
That's good.
Work on being as vulnerable as possible, and you got to throw, how's this going to make me look? What are people going to think about me? Out the window.
Yep. Have you read that book? I know Mike and I talked about it at the Builders of Authority event. No More Mr. Nice Guy.
No, I have not read.
I got to go through it again. It's great because he kind of offended me in the beginning of the book. He goes, "I've never met a nice guy that reached their full potential." And I was like, "How does that got anything to do with it?" I was kind of offended by it. I was like that. And by the end of the book, I was like, "Wow, he's right," because I would catch myself not doing things because I was worried about, you know, well, it's going to stress my wife, or it's going to bother this person, or this is going to do that. And I realized that I really hadn't, because I was holding myself back because I was worried about the feelings others had.
Well, we self-martyr ourselves.
Yes. And I couldn't, but I also was really bad about the creating emotional contracts that people didn't know about. Like, well, I did a really good job on your house. You should be really happy with me. And then when a customer's not, then I'm livid and I'm upset. And then my ego gets involved. And then now I've escalated something in the beginning with a customer that I shouldn't have. Or I've spent a bunch of extra time helping a student and then they don't go to a tournament. And then I'm upset with the parents because I'm like, hey, I put in all this time to help your kid. Well, we didn't have an agreement to that. That was in my head. That was just when I thought it was going to go.
That's funny.
He breaks that down in the book, though, and how much it messes us up. And I realize how much I do that.
Man, I need to read that book.
Man, I wish I'd have thought. I got 4 copies of it at the house. My wife and I ordered 2, and then she ordered 2, and I ordered 2. So I got a bunch of them. So, man, I'll tell you what, he just did the Chris Williams podcast again, but he's been on there a couple times.
What's the author's name?
Dr. David Glover.
Dr. David Glover.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'll show you when we get done here, the podcast. I just had it pulled up.
Okay.
He's been on Chris's a couple times. That's how I found him.
I got a 35-minute drive out of here.
Man, I'll tell you, I listened to him, and then literally within like 2 weeks, I started seeing that book everywhere. And I was like, wow. And I bought the paper. I listened to it, but I need to go through and read it. But you and me sound a lot alike on that one, that was a big eye opener for me. And Mike and I talked about it at Builders Authority. He said it was a huge life changer for him too. And I was like, wow, why are you guys saying it was a life changer? Because I was only a couple chapters in, and I was still offended by the comment at the beginning. I was like, whatever. And the more I listened to it, and then it made me so aware of different things. I was like, wow, I did do that. Or, oh, I did do that. And then like I will move something because I'm worried about how it's going to make someone else feel. And then I'm agitated all day over it because I feel like now they owe me because I did it, and I'm pissy. It was really wild at how my brain would work on stuff. And it's still a work in progress of me working through the book and doing it. But man, I'll show you the podcast when we're done so you can listen.
Nice.
To it. So where can people find you? As we wrap up today, where can people find you and get a hold of you?
I'm on social media. You know, it's David Marx. I'm like you. My personal page is public. You don't need to be friends to me to view it. It's Quality Auto Repair, Tire, and Auto Sales. We pull right up on all the social media platforms. Nice. We do some funny videos. Like we made one today. It's just me ranting.
Yeah.
About customers that's going on our TikTok.
The one I see all the time is you pulling up in the car.
Yeah.
And I've seen that one on my feed so much, popping up different places. So great job. I don't know how many views that thing's got, but that pops up everywhere.
The most one we had is we had one. So I got this box. It's diagnostic dice. You roll the dice and it tells you what's wrong.
Oh, nice.
Based on a symptom. The very first one we did would hit 6 million on Instagram.
No way.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Congrats. That's a lot.
I know. I had to change my Instagram notifications because it was just ding, 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 ding.
Oh, my gosh. With all the stuff I post these days, I'm actually probably going to get a different phone because I can't. This one doesn't do silent. It's a Google Pixel, and I might if I figure it out, but I haven't figured out how to put it on silent yet. And in the back of my head, I'm like, man, what if one thing goes viral? I'm going to end up throwing this thing in the river. Just because the notifications of Audi ain't going viral.
Yeah.
And then I hear people tell stories of something hitting like 6 million like that.
And like a short time period.
Well, yeah. And like their phone's hot because it's just like it doesn't stop. Like they said, it's insane.
It was 6 million on Instagram and like 1.5 on TikTok.
Wow, that's huge.
You know, going on there. Yeah, well, all these platforms, you know, that month I got paid $747 from Meta.
Nice.
From that, because I kept people on their platform. I mean, that's like celebrity stuff when you hit 6 million.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. That's huge.
That's huge. Well, they're going to pay out the next month. So like a 2-month time period, we had a couple go crazy. It was $1,200 is why I got paid from Meta in the 2-month time period, because it kept people on these platforms.
Oh yeah, no, as I build my presence on all my businesses and stuff, I've been very aware of how to monetize everything.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of pages I know that consistently do a lot of numbers, and those guys make a lot of money on the back end. With not only are they making money for everything they create because they have a business, they're not just a content creator, but then all that money from the content's just free money on the backside, just helps them create more. I think people forget about that too. Like, monetizing your stuff properly is a thing.
Yeah. So what I did is it's setting up so I use my federal tax ID number for my businesses.
Yeah.
When I filled out the W-9 on Meta for my personal and professional pages.
Yeah.
Because I want to pay taxes, or I want that reported on that end. But it's simply allowing advertisers to advertise on my reels.
Yep. It's great. It's smart.
That's how it is. And it's just, Facebook does not make that the easiest thing to do.
None of them
to fill out the W-9, which is kind of surprisingly, which kind of shocks me. It's kind of catch-22, because they want people on their platform. So if you're willing to pay for it, why not make this easy? It doesn't, but whatever.
I find out a lot of that stuff, but also I think that's our age too, where it's like, why is this so hard?
And you can't do it on a phone. It's got to be on a computer, on like a desktop. I figured that out.
I've learned that too, where I've got to start. There's different things I'll do from phone. I'm like, oh, it's pretty cool. One day I pulled up something on my computer. I'm like, whoa, I could have been. Oh, this is so much easier here.
Right.
I could, because it was like scheduling posts. I'm like, oh, I could see it all on my computer, but my phone, it was different. I was like, oh, I got to start going in. And what I'll do is I'll do a lot of it from my phone because the content's on there. And then I'll go back into the computer and play with it where it all falls and timelines and stuff. Because I'll get in a hurry making stuff and doing things. I'll double it up on the same day.
Yeah, this is why I have a MacBook and an iPhone, because they sync easily. Like LinkedIn, you can't schedule a LinkedIn post on a phone. You can on a laptop. On my MacBook I can't. Facebook on my personal page, you can't schedule a post on my MacBook, but I can on my phone. So that's why I have both. Because then I can easily go back and forth between all this and get stuff scheduled. So I'm like, I got content on my phone.
Yep.
I want to post on LinkedIn. I want to schedule it, so I can just simply take it from my phone. Apple calls it AirDrop, put it on my MacBook, and then I'm done. It's easy.
No, that's probably gonna be my next step, because my laptop's getting dated. So as I upgrade stuff, probably gonna go Apple just because of that.
It's just because of it's so I can literally. And what's cool is with my iPhone and my MacBook, I can work anywhere, because my MacBook doesn't have internet attached to it. It can easily pick up the internet off my phone, which is perfect. We use Spectrum, so I can work almost anywhere.
Yeah, it's handy.
Yeah,
the day and age we live in is amazing. So, well, I'm going to do our wrap up here. I appreciate you coming on.
Awesome.
Thank you guys for chiming in, watching the podcast, supporting our sponsors, and just everything you guys do to make this popular. Make sure, check out his pages, check out everything that's going on, and some of the great content. I got to go see the 6 million view video. I'm so proud of you for that. That's so cool.
Yeah.
So thank you guys again, and that's it for us today.